By the time you're watching this, there should be a video live on TFB TV that I made about why single-stack pistols are obsolete. I talked briefly in that video about the Beretta Nano and the Glock 43, which are the two guns that I mostly carried appendix over the last couple of years. I bought the Beretta Nano for about $250, I think, and I carried it for a pretty long time, and I continually upgraded it that whole time, which was a really big waste of money. Eventually, I bought a Glock 43, started carrying that instead. This Glock 43 is almost entirely stock, whereas this Beretta Nano is now probably costing me somewhere in the vicinity of $500. I'm going to talk about all of the expensive modifications that I've done to this Beretta Nano and why that still doesn't make it as good as a bone stock Glock 43. So when I bought this Beretta Nano, it had the black grip module, and I swapped it over to a green grip module. It's pretty easy to swap the internal chassis over to a different colored frame. Those usually cost between $40 and $50, depending on when you buy them. So that's about $50 just spent on vanity right there. The magazines that the gun comes with is one flush fit 6-rounder and one extended 8-rounder. And the flush fit base pads are a very, very thin piece of plastic that extends really far to the back. They don't give you a whole lot of grip to work with, and they also kind of get bound up in a pocket. So I swapped the base plates on both of my 6-rounders for these Pierce extensions. These don't add any capacity, but they do significantly improve the grip of the gun. On the Glock, I haven't had to do that because the standard 6-rounders come with a Glock branded extended base plate, which again, does not add any capacity, but does give you a much better grip on the gun. At some point, due to boredom or maybe stupidity, I decided to put one of the Laser Max laser trigger guards onto the Nano. These probably cost about $100, and also, when I did that, it means that I had to replace my holster for one that was actually compatible with the laser trigger guard, so ballpark that another $150. The stock sights that come on this gun are just metal 3 dots, so at some point I also replaced them with the XS big dots. This is one very large tritium front sight and a V-notch with a single line, so it's sort of an I-dot sight configuration. These sights are, I guess, fairly fast, but they are extremely imprecise, and I don't find them to be that much better than the stock sights. The only real advantage is that it does have a tritium vial in the front, so they are night sights. So if you ballpark all the money that I spent on this Nano, I probably got about $500 into it, which is actually more than the cost of a Glock 43. This Glock 43 is pretty much entirely stock, except for the slide release lever, and that's a very cheap, easy modification to do. This has the exact same standard magazine capacity of 6 rounds. The extended magazine that I have for it has a Vickers base plate, which is 8 rounds. So both of these guns I carried with a 6-round magazine in the gun and an 8-round magazine in a appendix offside carrier. These are the extended magazines for the Glock 43 and the Beretta Nano. So you can see the Beretta Nano is actually a true single stack. The Glock 43 is a very slightly staggered stack. This is the factory 8-round extended magazine for the Nano. This is a standard 6-round Glock magazine with a +2 Vickers tactical extension base plate on it. Despite the fact that the Beretta Nano is a true single stack, it's still wider than the Glock 43. The Glock 43 has no weapon light or laser. It still has the stock sights, which is the old-fashioned U-bucket sights. These work just fine for me. I am able to get a really fast, really accurate sight picture with Glock sights. They also don't have a lot of air gap in them, so I can actually even shoot pretty precise groups with a Glock 43. The trigger on the Glock 43 is significantly better than the trigger on the Nano. The only downside of the Glock 43 is that you may not consider it to be as safe, because it's a fairly light single-action pull. Really, honestly, not that light. The Beretta Nano is the worst of both worlds, because it is a very long, heavy double-action pull, but it is not actually double-action only. There is no restrike, so you get pretty much all the downsides of the double-action, and the only upside is that I guess it's very safe. I don't know if you can tell, but the Nano is actually bigger than the Glock 43. In pretty much every dimension. The slide is slightly shorter on the Nano, but so is the barrel, so that's kind of a wash. The Nano also doesn't have an external slide release lever, although it does still have last shot hold open. You just rack it to get it back into action. So is it possible to spend enough money on a Beretta Nano to make it competitive with a Glock 43? I don't think you need me to tell you the answer to that. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Barely.
3.8.